Pollyanna, Chapter 4 Jelly and Red Rose. As she was late again for supper, she went straight to the kitchen to talk to Nancy about the accident in the woods. A couple of days later, she came up with the idea of visiting Mr. Pendleton and asked her aunt if she could take some food to somebody else that week. "What are you up to, Pollyanna?" she asked in cold voice. "Nothing. You wouldn't mind if I take the calf's foot jelly to him instead of her this one time. Just this once. The broken leg will soon be healed, and then Mrs. Snow can have all her jelly after this one time." "Him? Broken leg? Who are you talking about?" "Oh, I forgot you didn't know." Then Pollyanna quickly told Miss Harrington the whole story about finding Mr. Pendleton in the woods and arranging medical help for him. "May I?" she asked again. "John Pendleton!" she cried in horror. "Do you know him? Does he know who you are and where you live?" "I don't think so. I told him my name, but I don't think he remembers." "Very well, Pollyanna. You may take the jelly to him this afternoon. But he must think it is a gift from you, not from me. Be sure he doesn't think I sent it." Pollyanna spent a nice afternoon at Mr. Pendleton's house. At first she was nearly prevented from visiting him by his nurse, but quickly Dr. Chilton saw her and made the nurse let her in. Mr. Pendleton wasn't very talkative, as he wasn't in a good mood. But Pollyanna cheered him up. She kept talking about everything. She talked about the game and about the jelly she brought, the jelly that was from her, not from Aunt Polly. "Aunt Polly? Who is Aunt Polly?" "It is my aunt, Miss Polly Harrington." "You're Polly's niece? You live with her?" He breathed heavily. "Yes, my mom was her sister, but she died long ago. And recently my father died too, so I was sent to live with my aunt. She's my only family." Suddenly John Pendleton's face became very white and stiff with anger. The girl, unsure about what had happened, decided to leave. She said goodbye, but he didn't reply. On her way out, she came across Dr. Chilton, who offered her to drive her back home. On their way there, they had a pleasant conversation, during which she included him into the constantly growing number of people playing the glad game. Once she got home, she found her aunt in the sitting room. "Who was it that drove you home, Pollyanna?" "Oh, it was Dr. Chilton, Aunt Polly. Don't you know him?" "Dr. Chilton? Here?" she gasped. "Yes. He drove me from Mr. Pendleton's house. And don't worry, Aunt. I told Mr. Pendleton that you didn't send that jelly." "Oh, dear me," Aunt Polly sighed. A couple of days passed. One afternoon Pollyanna succeeded in convincing her aunt to let her comb and arrange her hair. Her niece untied her neatly done bun and let it loose in curls over her shoulders. She also put a white shawl over Miss Harrington's shoulders. Then she took her aunt's hand and pulled her towards the terrace. "Pollyanna, where are you taking me?" "Only a minute, and you'll be glad I did it." Pollyanna reached for one of the red roses in the garden and put it over her aunt's ear. Suddenly, her aunt turned back and vanished quickly inside the house. The girl noticed the figure of Dr. Chilton standing in the courtyard. She ran to greet him, but inside the house she bumped into her aunt. "How could you dress me like this and let me be seen?" Miss Harrington said furiously. "But Aunt Polly, you looked so lovely, so perfectly lovely." Pollyanna looked sadly, while her aunt was tidying up her hair. Dr. Chilton was waiting for her with an invitation from Mr. Pendleton. After the last visit, she was puzzled why he acted so strangely, so she stopped visiting him, because she thought he was angry with her. but to his invitation she willingly agreed to go. While they were leaving, Dr. Chilton asked her, "Was that your aunt, Pollyanna?" "Yes. Didn't she look lovely?" "I think you're right. She looked quite lovely," he answered softly. "I'm glad you said so. I'll tell her." "Never, Pollyanna," Dr. Chilton said immediately. "Do not tell her what I have just said." Then he took her in silence to Pendleton Woods. John Pendleton welcomed Pollyanna with a smile, which was quite unusual. "I guess I haven't thanked you for the jelly last time. Please go to my library, and you should find a carved box there. Could you bring it here, please?" Pollyanna did as she was asked, and they spent the next few hours admiring all the treasures that Mr. Pendleton brought home after years of traveling. There was a story behind each one of these marvelous items. "Little girl, I want you to come to see me more often. I'm lonesome and I need you. Last time you were here, I realized you reminded me of somebody very dear to me, and I wasn't sure whether I wanted to see you anymore. But I do. Will you be so kind to visit me?" She replied with cheerful voice, "Well, Mr. Pendleton, I'd love to come here more often." "Thank you, Pollyanna.